You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. We're here for you after every single Bulls, Bears, Notre Dame football, and Chicago Cubs game. Also, you can check out the podcast on audio form, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Just find the Locked On Bulls audio feed, and you can check us out every single day after we drop the podcast, plus just the daily Locked On Bulls YouTube and podcast as well. Look, the Bulls win this thing 125-115, down by 16 points at one point in the fourth quarter. Coby White hit a wild three that turned into a 4-point play. This game went from a dud and not being able to complete at any point, closing an 8-point gap, to coming back from 16 and hitting clutch shots all over the place. We're going to talk about the comeback. We're going to talk about those clutch shots that you're getting, the great plays you're getting from guys like Zach Collins, Lonzo Ball, obviously, in overtime. Lots of good stuff from this one. We'll wrap the show up with our best and worst, our tankathon / play-in tournament update with some key injury updates as well from the Philadelphia 76ers. But a lot of good stuff to talk about on a Friday night for the Chicago Bulls. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So the Bulls are now by 16 points in the fourth quarter. This entire game, I'm writing out my show prep. I'm getting ready. What we're going to talk about in the postcast show tonight. And the thing I'm putting on there is missing defense, missing clutch moments. That's what I've written down, because the Bulls, throughout the entire first 3.5 quarters, it felt like, basically, when they're down by 16 points with 10 minutes left to go in the fourth, when Billy Donovan calls a timeout, they cannot close the gap in any way. And then Coby White absolutely took over this basketball game. He scores 15 points in the fourth quarter. He hit that three. Before Coby White hit that three, the Bulls were 2 for 21 from the three-point line in the second half. It was Brick City all over the place for the Bulls. You couldn't get a bucket from Modest Buzelis. You couldn't get one from the outside from Ayo or Giddey, or Zach Collins had a ton of bad threes in this one. But Coby White, who has not had the best performances, I would say, since the All-Star break, really just turned it on. He was attacking the rim. He was hitting shots from the outside. Maybe the craziest one is where he's losing the basketball and just kind of throws it up in the mid-range from right around the free throw line as the shot clock is expiring. That was a huge clutch shot as well. And look, the Bulls got some help. They missed 2 free throws there towards the back end of the fourth quarter that could have easily cost them this basketball game, and could have been the reason why they didn't have to go to overtime also, but really could have just ruined everything for this game. And they've been pretty good from the night, from the free throw line. But both Collins, I can't remember if it was Ayo or Coby, misses those free throws there, one apiece. And it just looks like the Bulls have no chance to win this game. But again, Coby White just miraculous in this game. There's really no other way to put it. Like, what he did from start to finish in the fourth quarter there was phenomenal. And it's really just what's been missing, it felt like. And the Bulls have been fun recently. Look, I've enjoyed this stretch of Bulls basketball. No offense to the guys that have been hurt, but without Jalen Smith, who returned tonight, without Patrick Williams, who will be reevaluated in a week, and without Nikola Vucevic, I've enjoyed watching this different Bulls group of players play. Zach Collins, back-to-back games with the double-double, a career high in minutes for him in this one. Lonzo Ball, a career high in minutes. I guess that minutes restriction is off the table at this point. He played, those shots he was hitting in overtime were huge, obviously. But Zach Collins was doing a lot of great things for the Bulls in this game. And it's really, I think, a key reason why they won the game. Not just what Coby White did, but Zach Collins was playing great defense. And he was really all over the place as well on the boards and just making life hectic for the Toronto Raptors. When the Bulls got Zach Collins, I was like, that's just a guy. And obviously the reports originally were he was going to be traded. They were going to try to trade all 3 of these guys. He was the one who was most likely to stay. But he ends up staying along with Kevin Huerter and Trey Jones. All 3 of those guys had good minutes in tonight's game. They've been a reason why where, this recent stretch of pretty solid basketball, I would say, for the Bulls. Even the last game, which was a good tank loss. And this one's a bad tank loss, I guess you would say. But they're going to be a play-in team. I said it on the last postcast show. I'll say it again here, and I know it doesn't change their lottery odds a ton, and they'll probably lose that first play-in game. You never know, though. It's one game. This is going to be a play-in team. What's happening behind them is, and this is no fault, this is no credit to the Bulls in terms of that. I mean, the players, yes, for playing hard, but in terms of the front office, like, they didn't do their part in tanking, but the reality is the Philadelphia 76ers have the 2 worst contracts maybe in the NBA on their roster, with Paul George, who's capable of playing 37 minutes and scoring 2 points, and Joel Embiid, who is now just shut down for the season. And I'm frankly just not a believer in the Brooklyn Nets either. So I think by default, I'm just going to say the Bulls are going to be a play-in team, which will be fun. Like, we'll get to do one of these postcast shows for a play-in game, maybe 2. But I doubt it'd be anything more than that. So the Bulls win this game 125-115. And again, just a lot of really good performances from guys. Josh Giddey, his 5th straight double-double. That's a career high for him. He was all over the place as well in the first quarter. I mean, what he did in the first quarter, it's not something you see very often. 2 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists from a point guard, at least. He was just contributing in every way that he could. And he had some moments where, I mean, I think coming out of this game healthy, honestly, seeing him on Sunday feels like it might be a surprise. We saw 2 different instances where he came up limping. That last one there on a shot that, yeah, probably should have been called a foul, but whatever. Then he has the spin move that where he hurt his elbow. So Josh Giddey was going through it in this game physically, just hurt all over the place 3 different times where he's visibly shaken up, coming down the court very slowly. But 2 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists in the first quarter is a phenomenal start to the game. He had 4 assists when the Bulls had 12 points. So he was just contributing all over the place. And he ends the night, Josh Giddey does, like I said, with his 5th straight double-double. That's a career high for most games in a row with the double. Josh Giddey, 19 points, 12 assists, 8 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal. And even then, I feel like those block and steal numbers are not really credit to the way Josh Giddey played defensively there at the end. Him and Zach Collins both were really just, again, causing havoc in this game in a big way for the Toronto Raptors. So if you're okay with one game where, you know, they're not going to, you know, lose a game to try to improve their tank, this was an enjoyable game for the Bulls. This is a team that it's going to battle. They said it there at the end. Like, this is what we saw earlier in the season, the cardiac Bulls, but they now have, so I can get this right, a 16-point comeback win tonight, an 18-point comeback, a 19-point comeback, and a 20-point comeback on the season. If they could just find a way to start slower, it's still not what could have been, but could have just been a overall more enjoyable season and not be down that big. But the reason why tonight was, again, just through the third quarter, they could not just close the gap. And you think I think maybe the craziest stat of them all is that in overtime, when the Bulls took the lead there in OT to make it a 2-point game, that was the first time when Lonzo Ball hit his 3, to make it a 3-point game. That was the first time the Bulls led this basketball game since it was 22-20. So they went from the first quarter up 22-20 to not leading again until it's 113-110. That is a stunning stat when you think that this team actually won this game tonight. So we're going to talk about in the next segment all the clutch moments. I think there's a ton of them, and we'll do our best and worst. So this will kind of blend together, I would say, in the next 2 segments. But there was a lot of really clutch plays that we have to go through there in the fourth quarter and in overtime, more with detail, I would say, in the next segment. So we'll do that next here on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So really, when you're down 16, you need guys to step up. And besides just Coby White himself, just like, again, scoring 15 points in the fourth quarter, This game is won by clutch moments, clutch performances, clutch plays from the Chicago Bulls in those moments, in the fourth quarter and in overtime. So let's go through a little bit about what we saw there. So first of all, the Bulls are down. The Bulls get a layup to make it down to 11. So my note here is one final run. The Bulls at that point are 1 for 16 from 3 in the second half with 7:54 left to go in the fourth quarter. The Raptors, they get a 5 count. That's where I think this game really started to turn. So some of this was the Raptors are a bad basketball team. There's really 2 key moments, I think, where you look at the Raptors in this one in the fourth quarter. They get a 5 count. 5-second violation where they don't get the ball on bounds. The Bulls get the ball back. It is 101-93. They go on a 14-4 run during that when that play happens to get it down to 6. They also had a shot clock violation 2 possessions later. That was huge. But really right after the Bulls make that 14-4 run to get it down to 6, you get a bunch of good just like those like volleyball tip-ups that are happening. That's from Zach Collins, Josh Giddey, a couple other guys. They're all in there. They're battling the Raptors in the paint there. And then what you see happens is he gets it down to Coby White on the run, who gets an and one opportunity. He makes it. It's all of a sudden a 3-point game. That's really, to me, like the biggest first clutch basket of the night to see it get down to 3 points. That's when the 24 shot clock violation comes in just a couple possessions later, where that was just great defense. Like they're all, the Bulls did a good job later in the game with switching and things like that. At the beginning of the game, look, the Raptors couldn't miss. Like that's part of the reason why the Bulls couldn't get this 8-point lead down to 2 or 3 at any point in the second and third quarter, because every time the Bulls did something positive, the Raptors were just answering. Like whether it was Grady Dick or RJ Barrett, like they really were just responding to everything the Bulls were doing and just seemed to run out of steam there in the fourth quarter. But again, a lot of really strong performances and moments from the Bulls to not, take away too much. You even have not just the Coby White play that we mentioned in the first segment where he's losing the basketball and throws up the mid-range as the shot clock is expiring. Maybe the other best play of the night has to go to Grady Dick. The turnaround play that he has where he's, again, just like Coby White, losing the basketball. As he's about to turn around, you see him lose a step. Like he slips on the court a little bit and just kind of turns around and throws it up. At that point, that's when I actually thought, this game's over. The Bulls have no chance to win this game when he made that turnaround. And then they're 3 for 22 in the second half from 3, so they're not hitting clutch threes until Coby White gets the ball in the inbounds pass. The Raptors close out too aggressively. Coby White throws up that prayer and gets the and one, and it ties it and goes into overtime. The Lonzo Ball 3, while that's a great 3 and necessary to give the Bulls their first lead since it was 22-20, I do think what happened on that play is kind of interesting. Where there's no one really around when the ball is bouncing off the rim, off the missed shot, and Zach Collins just kind of walks up to the basketball, grabs it. The Raptors, it looked like they thought they had the ball because they're moving into transition. He gets it to Lonzo Ball. Lonzo hits his first 3 of overtime to give the Bulls the 3-point lead there. Coby White, he misses the layup after the jump ball, which that actually, too, felt like a very bad sign. Because immediately after Coby misses that layup, and this is an unclutch moment, I would say, not just the missed layup after Zach Collins, I think it was, won the jump ball there, the Bulls kind of gave up on the play. They were kind of dejected in that moment, and that's something that's plagued this team for not just this season, but for a couple seasons now. We all know it, that this is a team that has allowed their defense to really be affected by their offense. And when Coby White missed that one, to then allow, the easy bucket for the Raptors there, that was tough. But then you get Ayo. He gets a steal and a bucket. That gives the Bulls a 117-112 lead. At that time, that was their largest lead of the game. And then Lonzo hits another 3 to put the Bulls up 8. So from Coby White to really then Lonzo Ball, I would say, and a lot of Zach Collins in overtime, those guys played really a way you just, again, want to see. I want this team to miss the play-in tournament at this point. I want them to have a better lottery position. But I don't want to watch a team that quit. And to be down by 16, again, for I think the third straight postcast show now, I will give them credit for not just rolling over and dying, because that's not the kind of brand of basketball I want to watch. And you know what? I think I've said this in the past at least one time. And with everything that's gone on with the Bulls right now, from the front office and the decisions that they've made, to only trade Zach LaVine, to the TV issues that are happening where unless you can, I know sometimes the antenna's not working for everyone where like half of Chicago still can't get, the TV channel easily. In the fourth quarter there, in an overtime, when, Grady Dick, I remember specifically with him, when he's at the free throw line after he missed his first one before the Coby White 4-point play, Bulls fans, it's so loud at the United Center. I wish that would have some effect on ownership and the GM, which is listen to these fans for a team that's going for their 24th win of the season, a team that most of us want to see lose basketball games there, but the people who are there are enjoying it, and they're so loud in that moment that I just wish it resonated in some way of maybe if we actually put together a really good product, imagine what the United Center could sound like. Again, maybe that's why they don't do it, because Bulls fans are so incredible and they show out in the way that they did tonight, but it was loud at the United Center. So kudos to Bulls fans as well for their performance tonight, because when they're down 16, they could have walked away too. And it looked like a bunch of people stuck around. You saw the celebrations after the Lonzo 3 in the corner that put them up 8. So it was overall just a fun night. Now, we did see a couple performances that, you can't ignore what happened going into the fourth quarter into overtime, obviously. Again, being 3 for 22 in the second half is a disaster. The Toronto Raptors had 15 second chance points in this game. We'll see what the final turnover count was here, because the Bulls had a ton of those. They had 15. Now, the Raptors had 17. That's two bad basketball teams, largely. But that is something that we've seen, too, throughout the season, that this is a team, the Bulls, even with where they're at right now, they should have had an easier time with tonight. But 15 turnovers are going to absolutely kill you and make life very challenging. You gave up 24 points off of turnovers. Thankfully, in the end, you had 21, but the Bulls shot 13 of 49, 26.5% from the three-point line. And what was working for them, and that's why one of the frustrations I think throughout, which is watching the Bulls this year for me, that will kind of continue to come up, and I think it is a reflection of the coaching staff at times, and a lot, maybe not at times, pretty much all the time, but some on the players as well, is that while you're struggling this much from three, look at some of the other key stats of what the Bulls have in this game. Okay, they outscore the Toronto Raptors 28-15 on fast break points. So not just there at the end, but throughout the game, they're beating the Raptors up and down the court. They're also outscoring them in the paint. They outscored the Raptors 62-52 in the paint. And that's where I wish sometimes Billy Donovan would just shake these guys and stop just ripping threes all the time when they're just constantly bricking. To be at one point, to be 2 for 21 before Coby hits that three, why are you taking the last 10 of them, basically? Because it's not like they're good shots. No offense to Zach Collins. While I've enjoyed his time the last couple games here as a member of the Bulls, I don't really need to see Zach Collins go 0 for 4 from the three-point line. I do think it is interesting to see what's happening at the end of the games right now with, without Zach LaVine. Josh Giddey at this point might be a $30 million a year man. For the Bulls, maybe for someone else, but I think he's going to end up being a Bull. They were talking about that on the broadcast tonight. Because of the injury situation that you have, seeing Josh Giddey out there closing a basketball game, at least we saw it. Because that's something that has been bugging me all year about how can you trade for a guy, plan to build around a guy that, yes, even when you had Zach LaVine, you don't want on the court in a clutch moment. But he's been pretty good offensively. At one point, I don't know what his streak is at currently, but he was 15 for 18 for his last three-pointers. It's going to be a little bit lower than that. So I think it's going to be about 16 for the last 22-ish from three, because he was 2 for 6 from the three-point line in this one. And, again, as great as Coby White was in the fourth quarter there, he was 2 for 9 from the three-point line, shot 8 of 19 overall in this game. And we are seeing back to a downturn performance, even though some incredible dunks in this game from Matas Buzelis. He's struggling to shoot the basketball right now. And again, we saw a couple moments where you can just tell he needs to put some muscle on this offseason, where he's immediately getting the basketball, makes one move, gets a little bit of contact, and it looks like he's 3-4 steps all of a sudden behind the 3-point line because he's just not a big dude. And it's just get a little bullied, I would say, still. But again, great dunks from Modest Buzelis tonight. That guy can throw it down any given moment. Too bad he couldn't show us that in the dunk contest. Obviously, he's sure he wants that back too, because that was a tough night for Modest Buzelis. But not a great stretch of basketball for Buzelis, I would say. So something to kind of keep an eye on. Just, I hope Billy Donovan, my one request would be, don't take him out of the starting lineup. Don't even if when Vooch and these guys get healthier, leave him in that role. Like, let him continue to be in that role. And, as we've seen the last 2 games, and as pointed out by Stacey King and others, I think Zach Collins at this point now has, earned some real minutes on this team, no matter what happens when Nikola Vucevic comes back. So we'll be curious just like what Billy Donovan's approach will be. And maybe just at this point in the season, you just don't rush Vooch back. There's really nothing to gain from him playing. Because frankly, I think they look better offensively when he's not out there right now. And that could change, obviously. And like I say, it was a struggle for 3 quarters. But, I like the pace they're playing at more right now without Vooch, honestly, than with them. And again, he should have been traded at the deadline. So I'm not exactly clamoring for Nikola Vucevic minutes at this point in the season. All right, we'll wrap up the show next with our best and worst, our Tankathon and play-in tournament update here on the Locked On Bulls postcast on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. All right, best and worst moments of the game. Best moments, obviously, Coby White, the 3 at the end. I will mention again the shot where he was losing it and hits it from the mid-range there. Josh Giddey, 4 assists on the first 12 points of the game. All really good. I think my other favorite play of the game that I haven't mentioned yet was when Josh Giddey was going to the hoop to the left side, and he just kind of dropped it off to Modest Buzelis, who threw down a really big dunk. Really like that one as well. That just shows the creativity and the awareness of what Josh Giddey has around him. And I really do think that Modest Buzelis, even though he is struggling a little bit offensively, he is really the one guy that to me gets the Josh Giddey plan the best of attacking to the rim and Modest Buzelis cutting to it to go in for a dunk or for a layup. Modest seems to be the one that really just continues to show he gets the intention of what Josh Giddey is going to do and doesn't need to see Josh Giddey in trouble for that to happen. And in this recent stretch where Josh Giddey's played is just his best basketball these last 5 games as a Bull, and maybe honestly I'd have to look more into it, but I didn't watch a ton of Thunder basketball, but I would imagine this was probably some of the best basketball, if not the best basketball Josh Giddey's probably played in his career the last 5 straight games, at least consistently over a 5 straight game period. But he's done a really good job attacking the rim really well. Again, the 3-point shooting, if he could just find a way to do what he's done the last 5 games and then what he did at the start of the season, not to be, 8 of 15 or 16 of 22 like he was now at the beginning of the season or whatever it is right now, but his attempting to shoot the ball consistently from the 3-point line, when he's making him, it does show you, again, how deadly Josh Giddey could be as an offensive player. I don't know still, if it'll ever be there consistently, but you can just tell how effortless and how much it opens up the offense for the guys around him when he is able to hit threes, and you can't treat him like, a Russell Westbrook or a guy, or Giannis a couple years ago, where they're just completely non-threats. This is the reason. This is the exact opposite reason of why he's not in Oklahoma City, is what he's done these last 5 games. So a lot of really good performances. Worst moments of this game: the Jalen Smith air ball, not great. I hate to point out air balls when they're there. Overall, offensively, from Modest again, and just the shooting performance from the 3-point line in the second half before Coby White turned it on into the first half. They weren't good, obviously, in the first half either. But just a tough night from the 3-point line. And again, I wish they would just pivot away from it when you are beating up the Raptors in the paint like they were in this one. So where do we stand right now in terms of the play-in tournament? So with the Bulls win tonight, they move to 2.5 games up on the Brooklyn Nets, who have lost their last 3 games. So again, this is kind of why I think the Bulls are going to just be a play-in team. They'll be the 10 seed. And the Philadelphia 76ers have lost 9 straight games. And if you missed the news today somehow, Joel Embiid has been shut down for the rest of the season. So they have zero intention, and as they should not have any intention of trying to make the play-in tournament. Paul George can stop podcasting all he wants. It is not going to matter. He should have stopped podcasting like 3 months ago at this point to actually feel like he was going to make a difference for the Philadelphia 76ers. So a 2.5 game lead and a 3 game lead over the Nets and the 76ers. It really feels like we are not far from that being an open and closed case that the Bulls are going to be a play-in team. And yes, they might lose a bunch of games going forward, but I just don't think the teams behind you are going to give you the help that you really need at this point. So right now, the Bulls sit in the lottery, so obviously 2.5 games back of Brooklyn. So they still sit with a 6% chance. This also feels like almost a certainty at this point. Really, the only team now I feel like we have to really keep an eye on is the San Antonio Spurs. Without Greg Popovich officially the rest of the year, without Victor Wembanyama the rest of the year, the Spurs are only a game and a half back. They've lost 4 straight games. Both teams are 3-7 in the last 10, but the Spurs have lost 4 straight games. And they sit at 24-33, so they're a game and a half behind you in terms of the lottery. And where that matters, 6% chance versus a 4.5% chance to get the number 1 overall pick. So that race is closing a little bit. And my gut tells me right now is the Bulls might even find a way to end up in the 9 slot in terms of lottery positioning, just with what's going to happen with San Antonio the rest of the year at this point. So we've been wrapping up each show the same way. A tankathon spin to see what we're going to predict the Bulls to land in the upcoming lottery. So we've done this 5 times now. 3 times the Bulls have landed on the 9th pick in the draft. 2 times they have landed on the 4th pick in the draft. We hit sim lottery, and for the first time on Tankathon, the Chicago Bulls have landed the first overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Winning the Cooper Flag sweepstakes would be incredible. Obviously, this Tankathon exercise is a little bit of just fun to end the show with how bad things have been at times, but also just where we're all going to be hoping. The Atlanta Hawks last year had a 3% chance to win the NBA lottery, and they did so. So we'll be hoping and praying for luck on the Bulls side. So that will do it for this episode of the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on audio, come on over to YouTube. We are live as soon as the game ends. And if not, the audio is there for you pretty much as soon as the show is over as well. We will be back on Sunday after the Bulls' next game. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you next time